Welcome to the Positively Star Wars Monthly Senate Podcast.
Looky, Senator. Decent Jedi arriving.
I will sign no treaty, Senator.
I am the Senate.
This is the way.
Okay, so hello everybody and welcome to the June 2021 edition of the Positively Star Wars Senate. And this month, myself, Stephen, I am joined by the ever-reliable Ron and two newcomers in Ryan and Chris. So,
hi there, I'm Chris.
We're getting all sound effects or claps and that kind of stuff. We do that. Hopefully, Ricky will be joining us later.
No thunderous applause.
Yes, exactly. That's how democracy dies. So we don't want to kill the episode off too quickly, do we? So what we normally do at the top of the show is we normally go round the table and have a talk about people's Star Wars in the last month since the last time we chatted. Star Wars, any form, things you brought, things you read, things you heard, things you thought about, whatever, that kind of stuff. And we'll go around the table one at a time. The man who never usually lets me down in terms of things that he's brought since last month is Ron. So we will start with Ron this time round.
Hello,
go for it, Ron.
Hello,
your moment.
fellow senators. My Star Wars consists of not too much this month or whatever, picking anything up. But I did have a fun story. The family likes to hit thrift shops. And normally I bide my time in there trying to play the game that is find some Star Wars treasure. And we hit some thrift shop and looking all around. It's a very small one, didn't have much of anything. Usually books. They go to the book section and I can find, that's where you might find something. I ended up finding a comic. And it was a comic number one. I knew it wasn't anything old or whatever. It was from Force Awakens, I think, or whatever. So it had a couple years on or whatever. But turns out it was a comic book that was in a Target exclusive Black Series figure, a snowtrooper type of thing, whatever. So that was a fun little find. And then I just recently on a Target run, I posted something in the chat, found a fun little Mandalorian Baby Yoda in a pram watch that you push a little button and the pram opens up and there's a little Baby Yoda in there. And it was my ultimate Star Wars guilty pleasure that it was on clearance. So I can't pass that up. And then some Star Wars Band-Aids. Saw those and just had to have them. Yes, I'm a grown man with Star Wars Band-Aids in my house, and I will proudly use them. You're
actually going to open them, are you?
Yeah. Sure.
It's going to be. It says Star Wars duct tape as well, because I imagine that's got 101 uses.
There's no doubt some Imperial strength Star Wars duct tape out there. Haven't seen it, but I would own it if there is. Yes, the picture shows one box. I will self-tell myself there was actually two boxes purchased.
Johnson & Johnson. They're in the news in many ways, aren't they?
Yes.
They are, yes.
So aside from that, and obviously what we're going to talk about today's topic, the Bad Batch or whatever, and I did just recently let play and ended up finding myself watching The Last Jedi a couple days ago.
I got the sequels too.
Still enjoy the heck out of that flick.
Awesome.
It's a good one. Yeah, it's a good one.
Just wondering what company these companies do at head office, and they're all gathered around the table. I think Johnson & Johnson do more than just Band-Aids, I know. But you just imagine that conversation. We need something funky on a Band-Aid packet. Let's get some Star Wars.
They definitely have a marketing group, because the Band-Aid aisle had a number of Spider-Man, Batman, princesses. They brand all their boxes so that
the plastic's got pictures on them.
Yes, the Band-Aids themselves have pictures. I'm sorry I haven't cut myself yet to know, but previous Star Wars Band-Aid box purchases
for the cause, you need to run into the wall or something like that, and then you can put on these Band-Aids on and show us.
It's not within arm's reach, or I'd snap the photo. At the end of this, I'll snap a photo and throw it in the chat.
I have a few Band-Aid boxes with still some Band-Aids left over, and they were from a few years ago, but the boxes themselves are proudly in my bathroom, and anytime anyone visits and they see that, it's a mark of conversation.
Oh, of course.
One of the boxes has Vader on the front and the Stormtrooper on the back, and the other box has, I think, Rey on one side and BB-8 on the other. So, they And I'm a grown man too. So
What?
I hear you.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Well, you need to track down. There were some tins. They made some Band-Aids.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes.
That had some. There was like a obviously collect them all kind of thing. It had ships aplenty, Falcon and TIE fighters. Actually, it was an awesome little collectible. And our Star Wars Band-Aids are in one of those tins. I'll snap a photo for that as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a great pun for Star Wars and plasters and Band-Aids, but I can't think of one at the moment. Because over here we just call them plasters.
Oh.
Plasters.
Plasters, yeah, they're just
interesting.
Is that a brand?
No, it's just what you call them.
Us?
It's what you call them. So, you say, while you're out at the shops, can you get me some plasters and that kind of stuff?
Earlier you said, hanging around in your pants, and I know that really means.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah,
right.
I was thinking about, yeah. I literally meant.
Yeah.
Wait, say that again. Hanging around in what?
Ron missed this one conversation earlier.
Yeah, that's right. The term pants in England refers to underwear in the US.
It does, yeah.
That's right. What do you call pants?
Well, they're
jeans, slacks, khakis,
trousers.
Yeah. Well, we don't use slacks. It's jeans or trousers. Yeah.
All right.
And the word trousers for us sounds like what old men wear. Like
tend to be suits or something fancier.
So they are. Yeah, that is. Yeah, and be honest, not many people wear trousers to like work or a funeral or wedding or something like that.
Right. I remember
people got jeans on.
My grandfather used to refer to jeans as dungarees.
Yeah,
that was like an old word to us.
Yep.
So I mean that watch, Ron, is massive. So presumably that's a child's one. It's a child's watch.
I'm not sure why one would assume such. Yeah, no, it's definitely a child. It's supposed to be a child's watch. It's very bulbous.
Does it make any sounds?
I bought it. I pushed a little button. The pram opened up. It had Yoda, Star Wars hooked, and that's the extent of what I've done to know what it. I'm sure it's just a digital watch and might have an alarm of sorts, but no, I don't think it makes any Baby Yoda sounds. It would say that. I think that'd be real evident on the packaging or something. So yeah, I think it's gimmick, if you will, is that it pops up and little Baby Yoda's inside of it. But yes, it is. I should have taken a profile shot of it. It is quite the pram is quite bulbous. It is. I don't want to say a golf ball size, but it looks like 3/4 of it. It'd be a cumbersome to wear for sure.
And as I always have to ask this question every month, and we have to fill in the other ones and what the heck I'm talking about, Ron. But have you opened the box yet?
Not yet.
No. Okay. Right. Leave that as a mystery for the other two. We'll talk about that another time. Okay, next. Chris.
Hey.
You're one. Anything you want to talk about Star Wars wise since the last month that you've involved yourself in?
Well, and so I live in Seattle. I work on and off as a video editor and a visual effects artist, so I'm in the film industry. But I've actually been working on and off on a Star Wars project for about 6 years now. I don't want to hijack the conversation too much, but I've been making some very good progress on some voiceover material with Alec Guinness. And I've been doing that with a friend of mine where we're going through about 10 hours of audio from Alec Guinness's his memoirs. He had recorded 3 books of his own, and we've been scouring through that and making very good progress on that. So I'll probably talk about that more another time in the future.
So you're going to make him up saying things Star Wars from his...
Yeah, right, exactly. To create some voiceover narration. And we're very excited about how much progress we've made and what the possibilities are. So I'll say more another time. Yeah,
looking forward to that.
So how does legality and licensing work with all that?
Well, you just don't make any money.
Right, yeah.
It's all for fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's all for fun, and nothing that would ever be released or shared in some sort of commercial way. It's, I have a lot of friends here that are big Star Wars fans, and they've really enjoyed some of the stuff I've put together. And it's really just to share with friends and family, essentially. And I'm sure I'll share with you guys, too, at some point. So
that's commitment to spend all that time going through hours of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Never going to make any money out of.
Right. But it's fun. So I mean, really, I've had a lot of people ask me, oh, well, why do you do this? Why are you, engaging in this for, hundreds or thousands of hours? And I'm like, it's fun. I enjoy it. And, in terms of some other aspects of the project that I've done already, it's involved a lot of visual effects, and to some extent, these keep me on my toes to get me to problem solve with visual effects, and it keeps my chops up with industry work too.
Cool.
To take a shot or two, or a dozen or two shots from Star Wars and work on them and manipulate them and make them better shots and things like that. And that's fun to me because it's something that I already enjoy and love anyway. And then I get to, really apply my skills to it in a way that no one else is necessarily thinking about at the time. So it's a blast. These are basically, for the lack of a better term, fan edits of the original trilogy, but there's a lot more to it than that. There's some restructuring involved eventually. So, yeah, maybe we'll chat more. On the chat.
Oh, there's no maybe. You color me intrigued. Definitely be interesting.
Yeah, you've definitely got us intrigued. Talk about setting it up for cliffhanger sort of thing, isn't it?
Right.
If we don't get more people from Sweden listening to us over this, I have no idea what's going to.
Well,
there's apparently we're hot in Sweden.
There's that old line, how do you keep an idiot in suspense? I'll tell you later.
Exactly, yeah. Excellent. Very good. Okay, Brian, you're on next.
All right, so this past month, I would say it's been kind of busy for me. I got a new lightsaber, as I mentioned to you guys. I bought Dooku's lightsaber, so that adds to my mace. Because I went to GameStop, and of course they had a sale going on, and I might have went a little overboard. Bought a new lightsaber and the Tauntaun sleeping bag. So those are my big ones for this month. But I've actually been trying to finish a book for about 3 months now, and I really have to push myself with the High Republic coming up at the end of this month. So it's a Old Republic Knight's Errand. I actually never heard of it. I just found it walking through a bookstore. And it's been definitely a slow go. So especially directly following Into the Dark, I jumped onto this one, and it's nowhere near the enjoyment. But I know if I stop reading it, I'm never going to go back to it. So now my Star Wars pile is piling up. Like I bought Plagueis. I want to reread that because I originally did not like that book on its first release, but I'm willing to give it another shot. And I bought, from a certain point of view, Empire Strikes Back. So I have to read that. So my backlog is quickly filling up with the High Republic right around the corner also. And this Knight's Errand kind of dragging me down. But I know I got to finish it. So I don't know if you guys have heard of it or read it. It was a comic at 1.2. So
no, I hadn't. What era does that take place in the storytelling?
It's old. It's the Old Republic. So it's
it is Old Republic. Oh,
yeah. So the 2,000 years ago, they haven't mentioned anybody like Revan or Bane or anything like that. But it's the era of where Sith rule separate planets, and right now she's sneaking around. I'm maybe a fifth of a way into the book, but it's I've been putting it down a lot, especially with a lot of shows coming out. But I've also been filling in a lot of time with comics. So the High Republic comics, I read all those. And I wasn't going to get War of the Bounty Hunters because, I'd rather read about bounty hunters from a book, a novel. But after the big reveal from issue 1, which I won't say anything about because I believe Steven is a month behind, I decided to just totally go full on with that. Well, I shouldn't say full on because it's 30 issues. But I'm going to stick with the main run of the Bounty Hunter Wars. So... Good. War of the Bounty Hunters, excuse me.
I will read the first issue and I'll see how it goes. I mean, I got bored. Let's say bored is not really the word, but I didn't really get into the other Bounty Hunter series, the recent one.
Yeah, no, I heard that wasn't very good at all. A lot of it ties in with every. Oh no, yeah, I won't pick up that one. It ties in with every single Star Wars book right now, and I'm like, I'm not gonna pick up 30 side issues. So I got the Prelude with Vader. Just because his comic is always 5 stars. And even this one alone was really good. With it tying in with the sequels, that weird eye guy, the Sith Hunter, he's kind of featured in there a little bit. So, but War of the Bounty Hunters, I'm going to start picking up on. And I just wish we could discuss that final page, but I guess that's a cliffhanger for another time.
Well, I did look into what that was. So after you had said it was a big deal, I figured I'd spoil myself and found out, and I was intrigued, definitely.
Yeah,
As someone
I
that's
was.
been at this game for a while, it doesn't matter, be it books, collecting, anything. The backlog that you speak of that's just started for you, it will always exist. There's always
Usually
you're
I
on a
don't fall
very
too far behind.
slippery slope of backlog of, oh yeah, I want to get to that. Oh yeah, I want to get to that. And oh yeah, I need to do that. It just grows and grows.
Well, except for me,
Yeah.
because as soon as Disney took over and they made all the EU non-canon, I just felt I never got round to it before, so I'm like, I'm not bothering now at all.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
I'm pure canon at all. I'm not doing anything that's not. If it's not canon, I'm not interested.
Yeah, I know it's the Old Republic. I didn't enjoy anything after Return of the Jedi. Any of those books, I just could not get through. But the Old Republic, I read a couple of those. Never played the
Yeah,
game.
it does sound interesting, I have to say.
Yeah, the
Especially-
Bane series is great,
Yeah.
but who knows if it's ever. I'm thinking Disney will just stay away from that era. And honestly, if you don't mess with it, then it's kind of still canon to me. Like, if you just ignore it and they put it in the corner and they don't say yes or no, then it's like, to me, I'll count it as canon. If it's
And,
far
and
enough.
just like some people count Plagueis as canon, even though it's not. Plagueis was in one of the last few novels before they established new canon. And I really enjoyed Plagueis, so I hope that you, in your
I
second
think that helps.
visit, yeah.
It was
the other
so
one that
good.
I did enjoy is the Kenobi book that was right before canon was established, too.
You
Yeah,
say
no,
you did enjoy that?
I did, yes.
I
did
picked
a
that
lot.
up. I'm the book reader that I buy them and have them in my library, but don't read. So I do the audiobooks and did the audiobook of Plagueis. Just absolutely loved it and own Kenobi. And I've always wanted to dive into it, but haven't. And I think I did finally find the audiobook or whatever to hear that it was good as well, like the Plagueis
Yes.
book. I need to spend some time, but I think that one though has been a bit cannibalized. There's parts of it from what I've heard, if I'm remembering correctly. Are there parts of it that have kind of no longer count or don't work anymore because we've seen things contradict?
I don't know if it contradicts per se.
Okay. Whereas Plagueis is I think is loved because it was so good, but I think is so much thought of as should be considered canon, because I don't believe there's much of, if anything, in there that really contradicts or doesn't
right.
work. That it could
There's
very well
nothing
be turned into a movie
Yeah.
right now and would work with it all, and we'd fall in love with it because it would be timeline of seeing it all. So
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
I highly recommend that reread on it.
And I did both of them on audiobook as well.
Okay.
But
Was
these two that we were
Kenobi
talking
as
about.
so Plagueis was my first ever audiobook on it. I was just dumbfounded that's how they did. I thought it was just a guy reading. The sound effects, the inflections, and all that sort of stuff was awesome. I was hooked. Is Kenobi as well produced as Plagueis, if you remember?
Yes, it is.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely. And the guy that does the voice for the whole thing, of course, does a really good Obi-Wan Kenobi voice.
Oh, even better.
And there's a portion in the middle of that in I don't remember. I can give you the time frame on the audiobook. That was just so emotional that I was nearly in tears listening to Obi-Wan talking to a character evasively about his experience with Anakin. And it was it was so emotional. It was really, really intense. That he was avoiding explaining the situation, but saying how deeply emotionally impacted he was by this event. Which was
I really hope we get that in the TV series.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I love the prequels, but there was the real emotion was lacking from a lot of that.
Yes,
too much CGI and that kind of stuff. So I hope
let me sell the
get
Clone
that.
Wars then to who hasn't seen it. Was that emotion triggered, helped, or otherwise influenced because you had watched the Clone Wars?
Yeah, I suppose.
Because
I love the Clone Wars more than the prequels. I don't really enjoy episodes 1 and 2, and I really feel that myself that episode 3 of the films is the only one that really resonated with me. But the events of episode 3 really play into the Kenobi book in terms of his emotional state.
That's where the Clone Wars for me is why it's so good and gets good, because it really solidifies Obi-Wan as a character. So right when you hear, I can just think about whatever he might be talking about, whatever he talks about now that you have this whole fully fleshed involvement with Anakin, and you were my brother Anakin, that line gets me every time now that it never got me the first or second or 10 times I heard it, but now it just kills you because you know so much more, and that's because of the Clone Wars, and that's the power of what the Clone Wars was to establish that you're going to make me want to carve out some time and try to find that audiobook
Yeah.
for the Kenobi.
Right. And I mean, the good thing is that the Kenobi book, it doesn't have these larger galactic epic issues or consequences that you would expect from other Star Wars stories. It's really, I mean, I'm not spoiling anything here. He's dealing with like some of the interactions with some of the moisture farmers.
It's about
Essentially.
Kenobi. Cool.
It really is a very small story. It deals with the moisture farmers and the Tusken Raiders and their conflicting interactions. And Kenobi's sort of in the middle of it. So it has a very small story quality that I think that probably would not contradict anything specific in what they're doing with this upcoming Kenobi series.
Okay.
Cool. Looking forward to it.
All right. I just realised we're off on a tangent as we always do. I'm trying to bring it back.
Shocking.
Trying to bring things back on track. Ricky has joined us. But it's your moment now to tell us about your last month.
Let me see. What have I been doing? I've been buying those, trying to hunt down the Disney Infinity figures, the Star Wars ones. I bought some stuff on eBay and I got some stuff on Walmart.com. I tracked down Obi-Wan. It's like Clone Wars era Obi-Wan. So that's pretty fun. And then I also got Darth Maul, which I've had been looking for a while. But I'm surprised those things are still around because they've been out of production for like quite some time. But yeah, those things are pretty fun. And then I also bought like some. It's like a speedway game, like a racing game for that thing for it because I have an Xbox. So it's got Yoda on the cover and you can race around and you can be Darth Maul versus whoever. And they have it's like a souped up version of Luke Speeder. So that's pretty fun to go driving around. So we've been doing that, and then also I'm still doing our Saga Marathon. We're on season 2 of Ewoks, which compared to season 1 of Ewoks, yeah, I don't know. It's been a chore to get through season 2, but
You got stamina, boy. You got stamina.
yeah, I mean, for the other guys that don't know, I went through. Me and my daughter started watching everything from the beginning. We watched episode 1, episode 2. We watched part of the Genndy series to a certain point of Clone Wars, and we watched all of Clone Wars. Then we got to episode 3, and we kind of interwove the last season of Clone Wars with episode 3, which was kind of fun to do.
That's great.
Yeah, so we watched portions of Clone Wars, and then we paused it when we got to the parts from the movie, and then we started watching that for a while, and then we kept switching. I had like a whole little guide that I found online that let me do that. And after watching that, we watched Solo, and then after watching Solo, we got into Rebels, and then after Rebels, we did Rogue One, New Hope, and we did Empire, and then we started with the Ewok movies. I watched both of those, and then Ewok season 1, and now we're on season 2. So I'm halfway through season 2. So it's been a long journey, like over the past year, watching all this stuff, like seasons at a time. Yeah, because my daughter's 9, so like we'll try to binge as much as we can. But I mean, sitting in front of the TV for that long. But so we'll watch a little bit here and there. Like yesterday, we just watched like one episode of the Ewoks, which season 2 of Ewoks is kind of strange because they cut it down into like 2 episodes per episode. So they're like 15 minutes each instead of like one 30-minute episode or 22-minute. I guess. Yeah,
I didn't realize that. Huh.
Yeah. So season 1 was just each episode. I think there's like 13 episodes in season 1. But yeah, so it's like one story each episode. But season 2 they switched the intro and then they kind of made it a little bit more kiddie. Season 2, like it's more. I've noticed all the characters fall down at least 4 times in each episode now.
Well, even season 1 is pretty kiddie. And
yeah,
so,
no, season 2, and the characters. I don't know if the voice actors changed or what, but it does sound they sound a little different. But I mean, it's still fun. I mean, it's interesting. I had never seen any of these episodes before. I never seen the Ewok movies, but it's been interesting. Both of us, me and my daughter, watching something new. Besides Bad Batch and all that stuff, which that totally threw our marathon for a loop because that already happened.
Backtrack.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, we've
Did
been
you
watching
watch
that
the Ewok movie?
Yeah, we watched both of them
2.
because they have when they put them on Disney Plus, they have Caravan of Courage on there, and which I love those movies. They were good.
I watched the first one for the first time when they released it, and it was surprisingly enjoyable for ignoring the
second one.
animation.
The second one was not
as style.
The second one was like really dark, fast. Everyone just kind of like. Well, I don't want to. Well, I guess I'll spoil it, but they all die.
I don't think I've seen the second one.
I have not seen the second one.
I
so
don't think I have.
Yeah.
Is it better than the first?
I like the first one better. The first one was more Ewok-y.
Yeah, for being weird and having humans and just kind of ignoring the storytelling part of it. I gotta say, I was kind of surprised, maybe because it tied in with the game so well, the Battlefield game. I'm like, oh, that's how they got the little pixies, and that's where they got all the stuff for the fighting in the game. So, and that just because the tie-in with the game and the characters, I'm like, oh, that's where they got it all from. That's interesting.
Yeah, so we've been doing that, and then playing the Ewok Hunt too on Battlefront. Oh, and trying to finish Into the Dark, like me and Steven can discuss it.
All right, excellent. I'm going to be very quick as I am normally every month because this is new for Chris and Ryan, who don't know me, but I don't collect any Star Wars merchandise. I'm not a collector, although I have started this year getting into
you have a
books.
shelf.
And I have a virtual shelf. My virtual shelf is more full up than my physical shelf. Because I've started going through since the High Republic started, I've got into the comics and into the books, but I do it all either Audible or digital comics. So I don't have anything physical to add to my already. I don't want to call it. Say it's not junk. It's just that there's a lot of stuff in this house that doesn't need to be here in the first place, and getting rid of some of that stuff is proven hard as it is, and I don't want to clog up anything more with stuff. So yeah, I don't collect anything. I do watch all the TV stuff, and I do the comics. And although I haven't, say this month, I'm a bit behind on the comics, unfortunately. I've got a month behind. But I did finish Into the Dark within the last 4 weeks, or whatever it is. So I'm very pleased at that, because up until this year, I had never read or listened to a Star Wars book at all. So the fact that I've got through all three of the High Republic books so far via Audible.
Light.
Yeah, I've done them all via Audible, and I'm very proud of myself. So very pleased. And we'll get into the High Republic stuff in a minute, but I say Into the Dark was a bit of a it was a bit of a slog until the last third, and then it really picked up.
A friend of mine and I, my main Star Wars buddy, he and I are doing 3 audiobook trilogies, all intermittent. We're doing the Thrawn prequel trilogy, the High Republic trilogy, not the young adult ones, but the main ones, and then also the Alphabet Squadron trilogy. So we're sort of playing hopscotch with all of them. And we enjoyed Light of the Jedi, but had some issues. So knowing that the middle of Into the Dark is a bit murky is good to know as we're about to start it. So thank you.
So we might have to dance around some of the High Republic stuff when we get to them, and we'll have to take stock of where people are and what people want to know, what don't want to know, and that kind of stuff.
Right. There's a third book coming out soon, a third main novel.
It's the second book, isn't it?
Yeah, officially it's the second. It's like, as we said to Ron, this is like the second movie, isn't it? That book is like the second movie, whereas everything else is like other bits around.
Yeah. Wait. The first one is Light of the Jedi. Second one is Into the Dark, and the third one is coming out soon. Not counting the kiddie books.
Rising Storm is technically the second book in the main series, and Rising Storm is the one that comes out at the end of this month. I'm up on all the novels. So Test of Courage is a young adult, so technically it's not considered part of the.
I wasn't counting that. Right.
Oh, not Test of Courage, but sorry, Into the Dark.
Oh,
Into the Dark
doesn't
isn't
count?
considered. No, that's one of the books where it's, if you read the main series, technically you don't have to read. Into the Dark helps lead a lot into the comics. So I read the comics, and to see those two kind of intertie for certain characters, which I won't say, because I'm not where anybody's at. But Into the Dark is one of them that you could skip that's not related to the main series. The main series so far is Light of the Jedi, and the next one is Rising Storm. Only the adult books are considered the main story, where it's like, don't skip those. But any of the other books, young adult and tween, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, the even younger adult.
Yeah, those are the ones, Test of Courage and Into the Dark, and the other one's coming. Not Caravan, but the festival where they start to celebrate.
It's 1990s again.
Going way back.
Right.
But no, those Into the Dark technically isn't part of the main story. It's the, hey, read it if you want to know more about all this stuff.
Okay. Well, we're probably still going to do that anyway, but that's great to know. That's really awesome.
Yeah, it's Rising Storm is technically the second one of the main story.
Second one. Okay. Got it.
June the 29th, isn't it? If I got June the 29th in my head for...
It sounds right.
Storm.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
before the end of this month.
Will you get that, Stephen? Will you get that the same day, or is
I am
that
pleased to say that this time round, at the moment, we're getting it exactly the same time as you lot, because that was the problem with the original ones. Some of them I had to acquire through the dark side means to be able to listen to them on Audible. And
Is
that
that planned by the powers that be, or just happened to be
knows
worked out
what
this way?
I have no idea why they did that.
Well, I'd hope so. There's no reason for distribution or anything like that to be where
There's absolutely no reason for
off
it.
so that you can't talk about things like that, since it's a type of era we
As
live
far
in.
as
So
I
yeah,
know-
hopefully
as
that
far
should
as I
keep going
know-
forward for you guys.
The Rising Storm is coming out exactly the same time as
Awesome.
as you.
There's another junior novel coming out too, because
You're right.
at the end of Test of Courage, it had a little excerpt from, was it Race to Crash Point Tower or something like that?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
another
there's
one
a
coming
couple.
out.
Yep, 29th of June is here in
Okay.
Audible.
And then
Okay.
the third of the Thrawn trilogy comes out in, I think, September or August or something.
Pass.
I've read no Thrawn whatsoever. It's
Yeah, I
something
haven't
that
either.
no
I've
information on.
loved those. I've really loved those. I think I prefer Mark Thompson's voice of Thrawn over Rebels as well. I've really come to love Mark Thompson's depiction of Thrawn there's now 5 books out of 6.
Do you think Thrawn uses hair gel? Just think, is that hair naturally back like that, or does he have to every morning get up and look in the mirror and just slick it back and stuff? I mean, 'cause that is pretty.
Well, that's Jabba's other way of income. He makes gel.
Jabba sloth. Very good. Okay, right. We're moving on to the Bad Batch. Otherwise, we'll be here all day. And since the last Senex, for Chris and Ryan won't know this, but we delayed the last one so that we could talk about the first episode. And actually, I think we've got to talk about the first 2 episodes, didn't we? I think. Yeah. So it's every episode since then. So we've had 4 in the last month, and I think we will try. We don't normally do this, but we will try this time to have a 5 to 10 minutes maybe on each episode. Discussion and that kind of stuff. Try to keep it like that. So the third episode of the series, this is not going by memory because I'm absolutely rubbish at remembering things. I'm reading this. Was called Replacements, and that was when the Bad Batch and Omega were stranded on the moon after their ship was damaged on some planet I can't even begin to name. And we had the Ordo moon dragon there stealing apart, and Hunter Omega set out to retrieve it. Hunter is incapacitated. It's amazing in cartoons how people can get really incapacitated quite quickly. So Omega basically tracks down the dragon, retrieves the part, and then on Kamino we have Targant and Admiral Rampart, which is a great name, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Rampart. He's put Crosshair in command of a new unit of conscripted soldiers that are sent to, not Alderaan, as I thought they said, Onderon, to wipe out Saul Guerrero's camp. So that's basically that episode. So if anybody can remember it, which I can now, I'm reading that a bit more like that, what has anyone to say about what went down in that episode?
I'll go first. I really enjoyed it. I especially liked how they have set up Crosshair to be essentially one of the antagonists. I mean, when we had the end of the Clone Wars, it was just the 5 members of the Bad Batch, with Echo being the 5th, and we thought that they would all be kind of equally buddy-buddy. But then in the pilot, they established that Crosshair was at odds with them because his chip was still working, and I think that was a setup of his, chip working to what we saw in this episode, which I thought was really fantastic to see him basically now tracking down or trying to figure out what's happening with his previous group and really see him be at odds with them. I really enjoyed that aspect of the episode a lot.
Because we haven't really seen a lot about, other than in the pilot, it's gone a bit quiet with Crosshair, isn't it? Apart from that.
Right.
So we haven't seen him since.
Right.
Subsequently, we haven't seen him since.
Right. It was a nice return.
Yeah, I was just trying. I remember that whole dynamics. I remember when they Crosshair and the Stormtrooper group were on the planet, and they were, they were ordered to kill who was left, and there's that one chap refused, wasn't it? Then
right.
That was it. That was the end of him. But I thought it's quite I mean, there's a whole lot of dynamics there, isn't it? But obeying orders when you're not a clone to do that kind of stuff is quite a feat, really. I mean, I was thinking myself. I mean, we've all grown up a bit now. We're all thinking, this is a bit much, but it was quite dramatic that little bit.
Yeah, it's a reminder of how this show is really not designed for kids per se. With the fact that they're killing that dissenting stormtrooper off right away is like, wow, this is really dark. This is really a war show for sure.
Well, I thought more of them were going to join that chap in saying that this is not for me and stuff. Then we'll get down that whole dynamic of that strong dynamic of that it's not a good idea to conscript stuff. I mean, they are dancing around the whole bit a little bit in terms of we still don't know exactly. Well, it seems Tarkin is the one who's quite convinced. Well, the whole thing about before this, we was like, when did they stop with the clones and when did the regulars come in? We didn't really know.
Right.
And that's something we discussed in the past. Is this whole time period and how things are progressing from episode to episode, and I haven't quite got it in my head yet. Exactly how much time has elapsed since Order 66 to where we are now.
We haven't seen much time, but there was another comment. I remember remarking on it in the previous one, and there was yet another comment made that it doesn't sit so well with me, that it's a budgetary thing, that the clones cost too much, and they got to get away from that. And I just that's the one thing that doesn't sit so well with me, is like, really a budgetary thing? Why is that? Well, you're the Empire, but
they can just take over Camino. They don't need to worry about.
Well, but you need the Kaminoans. You need their knowledge, and then we've talked about this before. That Dexter Jester says that the Kaminoans, they're cloners and damn good ones. That they're not the only ones; they're just good at it. So, and why the Empire couldn't use somebody else or take over somebody else's operation? There's a couple of whys that need explained or need thought about or need to be handled in terms of why would the Empire have to worry about money or credits or anything like that for the Kaminoans in order to get away from the clone. I really hope that's not the reason, that it's solely just a budgetary thing. I really hope they flesh it out a lot better and come up with something a little better for conscripts or people wanting to join, people looking for something to do, because that's kind of how they made it. Is like, oh, the Empire pays me, puts a roof over my head, or 3 squares or whatever. So perhaps something to it's something to do for those in the universe, and to keep family safe, or to keep on the good side of things, whatever, as a way to create an army.
I think, as we said before, I'm not sure we have this briefly talked about this, but I think you've also got Tarkin is probably thinking about all the money he wants to spend on the Death Star and stuff. So he's probably thinking it from that perspective, that this is too much money, and I want my money to build my super weapon, which we still don't know exactly how much it's already. We discussed this before. How much of it is already built by this point?
Or maybe it's overrun, because it's being built. It has been built. It's been built for a bit of a while now.
Well, no, they get into that in the there's that book that's a prequel to Rogue One.
Yeah, the Catalyst. I was just going to bring that up.
Catalyst gets a lot more into how far along the construction of the Death Star is.
So with that, before you get into it, Revenge of the Sith, we see the framework of it, but that could have been a bit of a jump ahead. Is that truly? Because that should be happening about now, as we see these guys running around being replacements or running with cut, because that was at the end of the movie, and that's shortly after the Order 66, which is where we're at, kind of, we think, timeline-wise. But maybe that was actually needs to be a jump ahead. Does Catalyst make that scene in the movie end up being more a jump ahead?
Part of that takes place during during the Clone Wars. So when Galen Erso starts working on it, the war's still going on. I believe there's part of the book where Order 66 happens, and at that point, like, he's not working on it anymore. So they go into the whole thing of the Geonosians, trying to get them to finish it and this and that. But yeah, they've been working on it since pretty much episode 2. When you see
episode 2,
when you see Dooku, pop up that hologram.
Sorry, who was building it then? The Separatists. The Separatists were building it at that point.
Yeah, Separatists were building it at that point.
when Ganon was involved with the Separatists. I get confused,
And I remember in the book there was like a lot of
But Tarkin's a good guy at that point.
Wow.
Well, no.
Well, but he wasn't playing. He was on the good guy side solely. He wasn't a good guy, but he was Republic. So he wouldn't know anything, right? He doesn't know anything about the Death Star at that point. So, right, who started whose impetus was it for the Death Star? That Galen was the one that had the idea of the super laser, right? And put the...
Well, yeah, and part of the problem, which I think is, even though I enjoyed the Catalyst book a lot, I thought it was really, really excellent. Part of the problem that the Catalyst... Sorry, my cat is whining like crazy. Part of the problem that the Catalyst book creates is, I think, really backwards storytelling, which is that the majority of the Death Star is built early, and then the super weapon, the planetary killing weapon, comes very late in the game. And that really makes no sense to me on a story level. Like, that whole thing should have been built around the idea of being able to destroy a planet.
But do they make it out to be like the Death Star had this one purpose, and then as it's being built, they realized, oh, yeah, the super laser weapon technology works. Let's add that to it? It's right. It wasn't designed.
Yeah, the Death Star, the way that the Catalyst book describes it, which I think is weak, is that the Death Star was really just designed to be a platform for attacking, armies.
Space station, yeah, sure.
Yeah, like nautical battle stuff. But then the planet-killing device was sort of added later as an afterthought, and it doesn't really make sense to me, because so much of the construction of the Death Star seems to be revolving around this massive kyber crystal weapon.
Definitely, Revenge of the Sith shows that shows the hole for the super laser. So at that point, they changed.
I don't think it was an afterthought though, because they recruited Galen specifically and all the other engineers in trying to get all the kyber crystals they could back then.
But they didn't know how the weapon was good. They didn't know how the weapon would work, or how big it would, like what size it would take up.
Yeah, if we don't have that scene in Revenge of the Sith, we need you to be there. But if we don't see that in Revenge of the Sith, that could be a neat part of the Star Wars story. That the Death Star was initially planned to just be, like you say, naval, just a home base or a space station of sorts.
Right.
But then once they realize this technology or learn it, they go and add that to it. But seeing that scene in Revenge of the Sith from a timeline standpoint,
it throws it off.
That superstructure clearly has the hole for the dish because it's iconic, and he added it in there, and he had to. So, yeah, that needs a little fleshed out.
It's funny.
Well, it's on the designs too, and they showed it in episode 2. The dish.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right. When they the hologram.
So I think
it's like they knew what they wanted to do, but they didn't have the capability of doing it. They're pretty much trying to work it out. Like, okay, we know we're going to have a big giant.
I know what I have to do, but I'm not sure if I got this job to do it.
I don't know if I have.
Yeah,
the
because it was
engineers.
all
heard that before.
The super laser was all Galen's idea, but they tried to. But then once he realized it was going to be used for war, he left, and then they tried forever to try to replicate it, and it was something like it kind of it didn't really delay. They had to keep building. They couldn't stop building the thing. So I think when you say that it was kind of built around, they had to keep building it, knowing that like this is going to have a super laser.
Somebody will figure it out.
We just don't know how powerful. Yeah, we know. Yeah, and he left, and that's when he eventually was like, "All right, you're coming back."
One. What? It's the work is stalled. We need you to come back. I'm not coming back. No, yes, you are. So yeah, that might help to explain the length from episode 2 to A New Hope timeline-ish time of everything. But again, back to where it started all this, Tarkin doesn't know about it yet, in terms of we were hypothesizing why Tarkin and the clones and money for the Death Star, whatever. It's only once he goes from Republic to Empire-ish kind of now at the Emperor's, when does the Emperor tell him about it, that he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I want in on this. And that might explain why he doesn't know it, why it's Krennic's. And so, in the Bad Batch era, Tarkin shouldn't probably know too much about the Death Star or be involved with it at all. It's all Krennic's deal, but eventually
he does, though, because he tells Galen that it was his idea. Like, he's the one that thought of it years ago. But, Krennic's been the one running.
That's a bit, right? That's not true. That's a bit bravado.
You don't think trying to take over. That Tarkin knew anything at all? I mean, he... Pretty much in Clone Wars, he was already.
Well, why is
trying to get Ahsoka out of there, and they were trying to, he was doing all this underhanded stuff, during the Clone Wars.
in the Citadel and everything, right?
Yeah, why is Krennic so the Death Star guy then? I mean, we need the character and need another story and all that. That's why. But you're right. That needs to work in terms of it's Krennic's baby right up until Tarkin goes, good, thanks. All right, now I'm going to go take credit for it and take over and drive this bad boy around the universe, galaxy.
And the Catalyst book really establishes Krennic and Galen Erso's relationship early on, too.
Yeah, amazingly. It's
wonderfully. So yeah.
And his wife, and Galen's wife.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would say, Ron, I would really encourage you to check out the Catalyst audiobook for that purpose.
They have labor disputes over the Geonosians killing each other, building it.
Yes.
So I mean, it does go into a lot of detail of like what kept delaying it and all the trouble that the Empire went through to build it.
Is there any part of the book that talks about parking far away when you're visiting friends?
Yeah.
All right, Bad Batch. Yeah. Where were we? Replacement?
And then episode 4 is called Cornered. Oh, this is the one where we see Fennec Shand.
Technically, we see a bounty hunter.
Well, yeah, we see a bounty hunter.
Well, so I bring that up just because as Uber fans that follow this and do this sort of stuff, we all knew ahead of time and we're excited. But I rewatched the episode, and nowhere in the episode is it alluded to who it is at all whatsoever. So the casual fan, or most fans, if you will, or anyone watching this, whatever, doesn't pick up who that is.
I have to
say, until the next one, right? I think they do say who she is in the next one.
They never say Boba Fett's name in Empire.
I have the subtitles on, so I knew exactly who it was.
No, I contend you didn't, because it says in that episode. At least mine, when I watched it, it just says the woman. It just says the woman because I watched it with my daughter.
And she had UK subtitles.
She asked, "Should we know who that is?" Well, that'd be interesting if that's true, Stephen.
No, you might be right. You might be right. It might just be because everybody's been talking about her being in it before.
Go watch it again, because I was very curious. We all know that's Fennec, but really it wasn't ever mentioned. And when I watched with the subtitles, it just says the woman, and they've done that before. To obfuscate whoever might be talking, kind of thing, or whatever. So it's not out there. It just says the woman, the character, voice, or something like that. And other times it'll say Ahsoka, Fennec, or whatever's going on. So there's really some purposeful trying to not hide it, but trying to reveal that that's Fennec. So we kind of got spoiled as fans. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't Luke coming back, or whatever. But us knowing about it ahead of time before going into that it was Fennec was found out how is what I'm wondering. And then maybe we shouldn't be so happy to know information ahead of time, because we're missing out on that. That's a big thing for me. You only get one chance, that first opportunity for something like that. And to have that revealed in the next episode would have been cool. It's Fennec. I didn't really care, but to my point of seeing that kind of thing is fun. So there is a bit of staying offline sometimes till you watch these episodes to not be spoiled by things.
But this episode had a lot of Clone Wars vibes to it and stuff on the planet. The scenes in the air and that kind of stuff, and falling in and maybe not falling in and then falling on someone else. I mean, how the heck they keep managed to save themselves on these things, I have no idea. But then we also had the sort of comedy moments with the droids and stuff, which I thought was brilliant, with Echo and the C-3PO clone unit who was said, "I'm in charge," and all that kind of stuff was quite funny as well.
It was another episode of Chain Codes. Chain Codes. Right?
Yes.
Chain codes?
That's right.
Chain codes. Because they use chain codes a lot in that one.
Yeah, right.
That's a running joke from previous
chain
Senates or whatever. That just they just went on and on with the chain codes and the chain codes. But that's obviously a thing. They're establishing some level of security or some level of oppression, perhaps, that is going to be the Empire, that you have to have chain codes to get. Fascism, right. That one guy was like, "Look, I was trying to get on board this ship, I've been booked for this forever." And he's like, "Well, you don't have this stuff now, so you can't." That level of oppression, of fascism that's going to permeate the galaxy and help to build a rebellious group of individuals. It's fun building that episode.
But you had a happy planet, didn't you? How many people were celebrating?
That's true. Empire doing the parade.
Everybody's all their arms up and cheering and that kind of stuff.
But they do make a point of saying, why are they cheering? And they're cheering because the war's over. And it's like, well, did we win? It's like, yeah, well, it depends on whose side you're on. So I could see people at this point in the timeline cheering the clones, if you will, at this point, or what they see as.
They got delayed transmission on that planet. That they just worked out that just got the
Well, it
news of
just
the war.
happened. I'm assuming the parade and celebration is just because the Empire, the clones, that is shown up on the planet, and they're like cheering them, "Yay, the war's over! Thank you!" And then they're realizing, "Oh,
Oh, right.
crap! Wait, you guys are here to impose things and put your fascist rule and stuff." Ew. And that
Well,
would
sure.
turn-
That's the insidious and sort of gradual nature of fascism that
Yeah,
it sneaks
exactly.
up on you.
Yeah,
You're
you
right.
think it's
and,
something, and
they're
then it's
doing
too
that
late.
well. Yeah, I think that's fairly effective in how they're rolling that out.
Yeah,
in
that's a
these
beautiful
first few
point.
episodes.
That's
Yeah.
a beautiful point that the
So
episode
I would
is building
always-
that nicely.
I'd always assume that for like at least, should we say, 5 years after Order 66, that everybody was reasonably quite happy and okay with how things had gone down and stuff. But this paints the picture that it wasn't quite, from the word go, there was already people who could see exactly what had changed and where it was going. They were, Saw Gerrera is a bit of an oddity, really, isn't he? He'd be fighting for anything.
That's the other good thing.
They banned Chotnik.
That's the other good thing Catalyst does. That's the other thing good Catalyst does. It shows what's going on behind the scenes. And even books like Lost Stars, the one scene that really sticks out to me is where it's like the female is watching Palpatine come off the ship from Return of the Jedi, and she's shocked how old and decrepit he is when all of his media is like, look how young and spry I am. And she's like, this is the man I'm following. And it's those things that I feel like, and usually I only read books that are big on action. That's why I didn't like the Plagueis book. But Catalyst, just those scenes alone that shows, all this information is being hidden. And, Palpatine is like, oh, the Jedi attacked me. That's why all this happened. But then they see planets getting stripped for their ore and people being sent. And this is such, people want we want world building and why don't we know what's going on? But then it's books like Catalyst and Lost Stars that nail it 110%, where it really gives you a feeling how the people not in power are struggling. And I think that's, again, with the fascism points, it's a fantastic point of how where's Palpatine's Iron Fist is really doing to the people who aren't blissfully unaware on, Coruscant. They're like, oh, okay, this is what's going on. But
even in Clone Wars, the latter episodes, you had, so many remarks about how people were just sick and tired of the Jedi and my family died because this battle happened and the Jedi didn't save them. That whole setup, people are relieved
turning
now,
it. Well, blame the Jedi. Well, you're doing all this stuff. So it's his way to kind of, again, his ultimate plan is to blame the Jedi, turn everyone against him. And it's no, we're just trying to help. We don't want to be involved in this, but we keep getting wound up in it. So it's very good storytelling.
And it's a nice example of how, because you mentioned, Ryan, the phrase ruling with an iron fist earlier. And the thing is that anyone who rules with an iron fist is not wanting to let it be clear that he's ruling with an iron fist. And these books really do establish that, it's painting the nicer, kinder side of Palpatine, essentially, or the illusion of it, where all these other insidious things are going on. I also wanted to bring up that there was another book/audiobook that established a lot of that early relationship between Jyn Erso and Saw Gerrera. I can't remember. Is it Rebel Rising or something like that?
Yeah, Rebel Rising.
Rebel Rising, yeah. And that also establishes a lot of what you're talking about, too, in terms of the seedy underbelly of what's going on in the early stages of the Empire that most, let's say, suburban citizens are not aware of. That, you're seeing that.
They were immediately fighting against the Empire as soon as,
Right.
Yeah, Jyn was born, or, when she was well, actually, Galen and them and Lyra, dissented, during the Clone Wars. They figured it out. And then
it's in the book. I don't want to discuss, but if anybody wants to read it,
I want to go back. I should go back and reread it because I did love that book a lot.
Me too.
It ranks high up. Surprisingly for me, it ranked super high in my novel.
I know it was a short episode. Did anyone have a problem with the Hunter saying, "All right, Amiga, you got to go with them. You need a better life with them," and just kind of, just go with them, and didn't really explain much to her or whatever. And then she turns around and just turns around and bails on him. and you know, maybe she does say to the family, I can't go with you guys, I gotta, you know, go back, whatever, that the family's not like, hey, where is she, so obviously she must have said something.
They're like, thank goodness
it was very they turned in 5 chain code badges or whatever, and only 4 get on the ship. That this checkpoint is a bit dodgy in terms of, wait, I got 5, there's only 4, whatever, go ahead, you know. Obviously very short episode, and we needed her to come back to him and all that sort of stuff, but yeah, they kind of glossed over that in a big way, but it was a fun episode.
Yeah, that was episode 2. But yeah,
did anyone really think that she was going to stay with the
family?
No.
No, of course not.
See that coming from miles off, couldn't you? Okay, well, and then in the next the episode after that was the one with the Rancor.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, when they go
how thrilled was everyone?
They meet Sid. They meet Sid basically on Ord Mantell, and she goes to obvious exchange for the help, and Flavor's a kid that's a child called Moochie, and Sid will receive a reward from Jabba the Hutt if the Bad Batch help her rescue the child. Of course, then they go off, and Moochie is a young Rancor. They basically rescue her, and then they hand off the Rancor to Bib Fortuna at the end. Blah blah blah.
Jabba no Bada.
How did Amiga know that was Sid?
Because she's the clever one.
That was. I need to rewatch that episode.
I think she's got heightened perception, and probably they're drilled for war, aren't they?
Yeah, they were being all soldiery, and obviously she's Sid. She's the only one in the place, perhaps. And then that was the one.
Shows notes. Is Sid here? And then whoever turns around is Sid. But
yeah, perhaps that definitely needs a rewatch.
Hey, so is Sid supposed to be Transocean?
Yes.
Can she regrow limbs? But how come she doesn't talk like Skier? Like, you know,
she's played by Rhea Perlman from Cheers.
Which I thought was awesome. Yeah.
Really, I recognized the voice right away, and I was like, I know that voice, and I looked her up on IMDb while I was watching the episode, and I was like, yes, of course I know that voice.
Yeah, I didn't know when I watched it at the time, but when that past episode came on, like, I could totally hear it. I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's, you know, she's...
Yeah,
I like the snarkiness of that character, you know, keeping him in check.
Yes.
And not, you're the bright one, aren't you? Yeah, very, very, you know, we were talking earlier about Zero and derivativeness of characters, whatever, and I guess this one's one that works, if you will, so to speak, of here's how to play, you know, as a voice actor or trying to coach up an actor that maybe is not normally a voice actor or whatever, but you know, here's how you're trying to play it. Oh, okay, I get it, and go down that path. It works very well, and so far in what we've seen of that character, it's quite enjoyable.
She reminds me of the bartender lady from Resistance.
Yeah. That same.
Yeah.
Aunt Z.
Aunt Z.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
The salty character. Yeah.
Did anyone initially the hologram of what we then find out to be Bib? Did you know that was Bib at the hologram? That first, just seeing a little bit or just hearing his voice?
Yeah.
Or was it intriguing at that point for you as well?
I wonder who talked for him.
Yeah, no, that was intriguing for me. It was like, wait, what's going? You know, then I like that they were adding something to the episode of intrigue. They quickly paid it off there at the end. You see who it is, like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Once we saw what Moochie was, or whatever, and not Moochie, what's the name of the Rancor?
Moochie.
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 I watched it with my teenage daughter, and kind of came to that realization of, oh wait, and you know, she's like, is that the guy from Return of the Jedi? And you know, then I go into dad geek. Star Wars. Yeah, Bib Fortuna. He's Jabba's got, you know, government. She's like, yeah, that guy. So once she realized it was him, we quickly put it together that, oh, well, maybe because it was a young Rancor and all this sort of stuff, that, oh, that's the Rancor that we see in Return of the Jedi. Now, it seems that's not necessarily true or the case, or Jabba could have more than one, or this one's a female and that one was a male.
They certainly made it confusing. That is for sure. Because it hints towards it for like people who, I don't want to say like in the know, but you know, for the people who don't like follow it all very integral, you know,
uber fans,
almost like the Solo movie. We all went in there, and spoiler, when they revealed the big bad at the end, we were like, oh yeah, of course he's alive. But all the other people who didn't watch Clone Wars, they were like, what era does this take place? Is this, and that's the problem with some of these things that, you know, bothers me, as I've talked about before, where it's like they do have to, and they try to apply to the general audience, and they can say, oh, go ahead and watch Clone Wars and figure that out. But then when you have something like this Rancor, where they're obviously teasing, we know that Bib got it, we know that it got there, so now the general audience is kind of like, okay, yeah, this is the Rancor, and then us are like, well, I hate to be a gatekeeper, but technically, and then we get into our long rants, and it's stuff like that where I kind of get, it's same with the Vader 25, which I brought up, the Vader 25 issue, where it's like,
we don't have to gatekeep, because we can just say, oh yeah, you might think that, but actually, it can be, there's nothing contradictory in it, and it ends up expanding the story. If that's Jabba's Rancor in Return of the Jedi, then it's just a linear point and there's not much more to it. But having it be a different one, a female versus a male, a different name versus a male, then there's story to be told as to Jabba breeding them, or the brother, sister, the dad, whatever, of the Rancor we've seen in Jedi. So there's something to not being so straightforwardly linear. And the other thing I'll say about Maul and Solo, my general audience, fans that went with me, kind of thing, whatever, they just thought it was another one of that Darth Maul type guy. Yeah, just another one of them. They're bad guys or whatever. And
God, there's two of them. It's getting worse all the time.
Because that's another interesting question. In Maul or in Solo, I don't think they actually ever say that that's Maul, do they? So my general audience friends took it that way in terms of. It's just another one of those bad guys like that guy that got killed and sliced in half or whatever, and then if you get into the long-winded rant of, that's actually the same guy, and if you want to learn more about it, go watch the Clone Wars. It's not that you have to in order to know who that is, but if you want to know more about why he's there when you thought he was dead, you can go dive into this awesome show that is the Clone Wars and find out about it.
I had no idea about
I was never a fan of
Rancor.
Back, so.
I had no idea about the Rancor backstory until this episode. I had to go up and look it up. I consume a lot of Star Wars stuff, but that's like something I didn't really know about. About the whole how he got him as a birthday present and all that stuff. But it's interesting to find myself out.
Legends book.
Well, I had read the Aftermath trilogy, and I didn't remember that detail at all. I mean, it must have been some really, really tangential moment in that second Aftermath book. I had no memory of it.
It's amazing how you get so much content, isn't it? 'Cause I've not spent 1 second wondering how that Rancor got into Jabba's.
Yeah. It didn't matter to me.
That's the beauty of Star Wars storytelling right there. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's.
I love Amiga's. Hey, what are you doing sneaking around there? I'm not sneaking. I'm opening the cage, or whatever the line was. That was a clever bit of writing. I thought of her getting caught, and she's like, I'm not caught. You guys got to deal with what's coming out of the cage.
Well, do we know how old Rancors live for generally?
We saw one. Didn't we see one in the Clone Wars? Didn't Anakin and them have to fight off a Rancor, maybe on Mortis or somewhere?
No, there were two Gundarks they had to fight.
So it was.
Yeah.
So never seen a Rancor
before.
Somewhere I thought we saw a Rancor. Maybe a video. I'm thinking a video game. Anyway, right. I don't know that we've seen a
video game
because we've only seen one die at the hands of a Jedi.
Yeah. I would also want to say about this episode that personally I loved seeing Ord Mantell for the first time depicted visually.
Yep.
And maybe this sort of shows my age, but in the early 80s, I believe it was 82 or 83, there was a half-hour audio drama called Rebel Mission to Ord Mantell, which gave the full story of the events that are briefly alluded to in Empire Strikes Back.
Really? It was audio. Yeah, it was just an audio book type of thing.
There were a series of audiobooks during that period. There was Planet of the Hoojibs, and there was Droid World, and there was Rebel Mission to Ord Mantell. And that cassette of Rebel Mission to Ord Mantell, my friends and I listened to that to death. Like that was a big
cassette
part of
only? It wasn't an actual book?
It was a cassette and a vinyl. It was a record, and it had there was no book. It was no book. It was a short story.
It was strictly a that type of content.
It was a storybook. It was a story fold in with the record if you bought the record, and it was just the cassette if you bought the cassette, not the record. And it was a half hour, and none of the voices were from original actors. It was all other actors playing all of the parts of 3PO and Han and Leia and Luke.
But 3PO not by Anthony Daniels. Wow.
Right.
That's rare.
Yeah. Yep. But it was a great thing, and it was such an integral part of my Star Wars experience as a kid in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And they really established Ord Mantell in this audio story as this bustling spaceport world. And there were sound effects and whatnot, but this was the first time in Bad Batch where we actually saw Ord Mantell, and to me, seeing that come to life was really super exciting.
Would you say they did it justice to what
they did? I think so.
Your mind projected as to what you heard from that audiobook all those years?
Yeah.
Very cool. So hopefully they knew it as source material or utilized it or otherwise helped to visually paint a picture that was painted by an audio cassette years and years ago. That's awesome.
What was interesting, though, to me is that they depicted it as a relatively barren world, almost like a tundra or a desert, with pockets of these, spaceports on it. Instead of it being more like, I had imagined it more like Coruscant, actually. I mean, this is long before Coruscant was even a thing.
It's weird because I remember that planet from Shadows of the Empire video game where you fight IG-88, and it's like a junk planet.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting because I never played that game. I never played any games really. But that's interesting that we've had other mentions of it before, but now this is the first time where it's like coming together. Did you feel, Ricky, that that this was in conjunction with or parallel to the visual depiction of it in the game?
I thought it was pretty much the same. I mean, I think on that, it's been years since I played that game, but yeah, I mean, if I remember correctly, you're kind of like, doing a shootout around. It pretty much looks like you're in like a scrapyard or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of had the same kind of feel.
If anyone wants, I can put up the Rebel Mission to Ord Mantell digital file for people to check out if they want to.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Because I have it. Yeah.
So it's Mantell or is it Mandel?
It's Mantell, and Harrison Ford mispronounced it in that particular take of Empire Strikes Back.
Are you kidding me? Really?
Yeah, he said Ord Mandel in the movie, but it's Ord Mantell.
He's first. Why is him saying Ord Mandel not what all the source stuff that comes after?
It was in the script as Ord Mantell, and all of the documentation, the novelization, the comic book, and everything had the T. And Harrison Ford just pronounced it differently, and they never ADR'd it because no one cared.
I want to say
it's just
in Shadows of
another
the Empire, it was
moment.
Mandel, right?
No, that's not Han because it's a T and a D. How do you get Mandel out of a T? Yeah, no, I don't. I call foul on that one. But it speaks volumes to how things got created after the fact. That as source material and this cassette thing that got made after the movie, people aren't referencing the movie. They weren't uber fans at the time because they didn't get to watch it 500 times because we had VHS at the time and all that. So the source, the power or the people that are making it think he say Mantell because they haven't watched the movie 500 times yet.
Sure.
That they're looking at the script and we get things that say Mantell, but he says Mandel. That's
a
awesome.
Korriban, Morriban kind of thing where it's like different, like decanonized planets.
I don't know. I mean,
the Sith planet was like Korriban, and now is Morriban in Clone Wars. So
I just feel that it was like Harrison Ford mispronouncing it, and it's not as extreme as Korriban, Morriban, because I mean those are more obvious changes. Let me see if I can find an image that I can.
Like, is it Omega or Omega? Like,
this
is what confuses me about because there's planets.
Confused me too.
There's planets with similar names to Alderaan, isn't it? We had it in this thing, Onderon, and that kind of stuff. And I think there's another one, and it keeps, yeah. And sometimes that just, for a split second with my dyslexic head, I'm there. I have to spend about 5 or 10 seconds trying to work it out in my head because it's a bit slow.
And you have Christophsis and Mishmopsis.
Everyone's looking for an image.
We have Tatooine and Dantooine also.
Yeah, I know. It's
that's not the same place, though, right? Those are two different places.
Yeah,
they're two different places. Well, just like Onderon and Alderaan are two different places as well.
Yes, well, yes.
Yeah, where are the rebels? They're on Schmavin.
We'll move on because we're coming up to the last 10 minutes or so here. So the latest episode, which was just a mere 2 days ago, so we should all be able to remember this one. Even me. Was the episode 6 was a decommissioned which is when Sid hires the Bad Batch to retrieve a separatist tactical droid for its battle intel before it's destroyed at a Corellian decommission site. So, I have to say, I thought this episode for me was pretty much when I felt like the season had really, I don't know, just something just clicked in this one for me. Not that I hadn't enjoyed the previous ones, but I just felt like everything has started to come together, and that this episode was just it's back on its way up. I mean, we had the open episode, which is near darn perfect for me. Then it's slightly down again, but I think now we're really starting to ramp up again in terms of interest and excitement and stuff.
I did like the inclusion of the Martez sisters. We were kind of all excited.
Yeah,
when they
as soon as I
popped
saw them, I thought, oh my god, I can hear the naysayers out there going, oh my god, it's those sisters again.
Yeah.
But I mean, I didn't dislike them in the Clone Wars.
Instead of having like random characters, play that part, you have the two that kind of have been established a little bit already. It's
Oh, this wasn't their first time? They were in Clone Wars?
Yeah, they were
previously?
in Clone Wars.
They were in
yeah.
the last season of Clone Wars. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was kind of cool. I mean, every episode I think so far has had that aha moment for fans that consume a lot of the other stuff. Yeah, I mean, you got the Rancor thing, and then you got this stuff. There's and then the what she's using that bow and arrow from the Night Sisters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, I mean, there's a lot of cool references, Easter eggs, I guess, if for the hardcore people. And
I just thought everything inside that decommissioning thing was just brilliant. It's classic cartoon stuff, really, isn't it? The chase and losing it and then grabbing it and then somebody else has got it and that kind of stuff. We've seen it all before, but it's still great fun.
I got to go back and watch Clone Wars because I think I remember Echo doing that same trick with the head
Apparently
of the
he
droid.
did do it before, yeah. I saw it and I was reading stuff and they said, oh, he done the Echo joke again.
Yeah.
That was brilliant. I actually laughed out when that happened. Is there an Echo in here? Yes. That was just brilliant.
They heard our last episode, Stephen.
Sorry?
They heard our last episode when you had an Echo, remember?
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was really funny though. That was. I mean, I don't think that's ever going to get old, really, unless they do it every.
I think they got a good mix of like humorous stuff and the action and all. It's been. I've enjoyed the series a lot so far. Like,
and then, who had thought that hologram at the end was actually Ahsoka?
I don't see it.
That never crossed my mind.
No.
For a very brief moment, I think I initially did, but I leaned towards Rex
Or Bale.
My first thought was Bale.
Okay.
Or Ryder Asadi. That could be another guy from Rebels.
I'm trying not to make too big of a guess, so it's not like a letdown. So it's like I've been avoiding all the guesses on it because it's like if it's somebody mediocre, then it's like, oh, I guess that's okay. So I usually try to do that. Immediately I'm like, oh my gosh, is it some crazy Sith guy? And I'm like, nope, don't do that. Don't come up with these crazy theories. Just kind of be like, okay, let's just see where it plays out because any guess in your mind is usually way bigger than what it actually is.
So
I Obi-Wan? To shoot
Yeah.
for the moon, do you think it could be Obi-Wan?
It's an idea too.
Well, I mean, the sisters
Don't
have
make
a
that big of an
connection
idea.
to Ahsoka. The sisters have a connection to Ahsoka, so if you haven't seen
Yes, that's
Clone
true.
Wars.
That's
so
true. Yes.
whoever they got in contact with might be because of her. So I mean, it could well be Rex. So,
It seemed shady to me. Like they
It did seem
seemed
a little
like
shady
again,
to
I don't
me,
know
too.
the characters, but it seemed like Hunter wanted to do the right thing, and he's like, you know what, I want to try doing something the right thing, and then they gave it to him, and then there's just kind of way that played out. It's like, all right, we got the information, and then they didn't show the character, so it seemed a little shady. Like again, I don't know their previous story, but it seemed like they're kind of going towards the I don't want to
She's
say
always
dark side,
got
but
something up her sleeve. She's kind of like a Lando kind of
almost like an
character.
Afra thing.
Yeah,
Afra's
that's-
involved in the worst part.
They're
of it,
not
so.
bad people, that's for sure, but they could
Okay.
easily be manipulated by.
Me with no connection to Clone Wars, it certainly had the intention that I'm like, ooh, Hunter may have made the wrong decision. He was trying to do something good, but he may have just screwed up big time.
I'm going to think that's exactly why it was couched that way. This needs to be a standalone story. You don't necessarily. It's not the Clone Wars season 8, so it's Bad Batch. So for somebody that has Clone Wars, you need to be you need to be a little cagey about who these characters are or whatever, but those of us in the know kind of also are like, wait, yeah. So it very, very much seems to be built around that part, that this is its own standalone show. Let's make these characters be where they need to be in that scene and that caginess aspect of it. So
yeah, that's a really neat thing to have like those characters introduced to somebody who hasn't seen Clone Wars, and like, oh, there's other stories with these people, and the same thing with Fennec. If they establish her a little bit more, I mean that's totally cool. It's like you're in, to maybe go take a look at those stories.
Hunter's trying to do something right, but then it's like, well, did he actually just make it worse?
Did he
just do something? That's the connection I'm feeling, not knowing anything about the characters. It's showing the person at the end, and it could be the cliffhanger where they want you to feel like that, but then next episode they're like, okay, well, no, they're actually good, and you kind of have this relief, and it's like, oh, okay, it's someone of the lighter side.
I wonder if we'll find out who Sid was going to give it to. I want to know.
Well, that's it. I mean, how much does anybody?
Who would benefit from having that? Like, who would benefit from having the plans of the clones? And I would think Echo would have a lot more, of their battle strategies already, because that was kind of like why they rescued him, from that. I forgot what planet that he was on when they had him hooked up to that machine. Because
stupid Sid doesn't know that, does?
Yeah, he was using, the plans. Yeah. Well, I guess maybe they never told. I mean, she wouldn't know. So yeah, I mean, they could just use Echo.
That's true. I mean, I'm wondering with Sid how much one can, as you can trust anybody in the world, how much they can trust her not to be. She's probably not going to dub them in because she probably sees some value in them anyway. So she string them along until they're not of any value to her. But I can't quite work out whether she's that kind of one who would not.
Well, she really doesn't
give them away.
Care if they destroy her cantina, obviously. So.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
The other thing about that episode, having been to the droid factory had a very the Disney park has a droid building factory area where you can build your own droid, and it was
it did kind of
that. It was the conveyor belts, the way they curved, the parts kind of scattered all over it. That was something I noticed and picked up on. I was like, well, that's kind of a neat. Not that it's that planet, not that area of Batu or whatever, but it was just a in-universe kind of construct that carried through or whatever that I thought was kind of neat.
They didn't have the stickers for sale on the wall.
They were decommissioning them, so they're just taking them apart.
We talk about the Clone Wars animation and that kind of stuff, and how that improved over the series. But I mean, this Bad Batch is just like the next level again, isn't it? I mean, it's gorgeous to watch. I have to say,
cinematically stunning and very much in line with the style of the final season of Clone Wars, which was really just so remarkable, beautiful.
There's just so much to look at. You could almost take a still and put it on your wall, couldn't you?
Oh, absolutely. There's so much detail. There. Yeah, and just the lighting, the sense of lighting and the sense of texture on every object and on the skin and on the armor and everything is just really
the
rich.
episode when they were like getting chased by Fennec, that looked great. That reminded me of like episode 2, like the future world, place, little city. Like that was awesome. And they're speeding through that, like all the neon lights and all that. So it looked awesome.
Yeah, really incredible.
It was mentioned the cinematic. I do the Star Wars Card Trader, and they do a series for the Bad Batch, and it's just stills of the episodes, and they're awesome to look at, even on my tiny little phone.
I haven't been on there for a while.
I wish they do, real cards, but anyway. So it is very cinematic and very well done, very gorgeous. And we did the Disney cruise, and one of the celebrities, if you will, was the lighting director from the Clone Wars, whatever, and went and sat in on his thing, whatever, and it ended up being very fascinating to listen to and to learn what goes into all of that, and came away from that with a huge appreciation as to how much time, energy, and effort they put into that to make the lighting work so that it looks cinematic, so that it looks real. That I know I'm watching a cartoon, but I don't think I'm watching a cartoon. It really get into the characters and the worlds and the areas and the things. The only time I ever really notice it as being animated is when they make somebody walk like down a hallway or to the bar, or just when somebody's got to walk like 4 or 5 steps, the gate just always looks animated for whatever reason. But the rest of it is, like someone says, just very beautiful, very well done, very cinematic, and much appreciated by even everybody that works on it, truly.
Yeah, I would agree too that the gait and posture of characters are really the last frontiers. The only thing that they haven't really improved. Everything else.
Everyone kind of walks like Jar Jar.
Yeah, they walk really super stiff, like they're trying to keep something up their butt or something.
I was going to say that, but that was going to be my wild card for the reveal at the end of the episode that it's Jar Jar that they're working for. But that would make mine and Ricky's day. But I can't see it. I would love to see Jar Jar somewhere in this Bad Batch stuff, I have to say. But I think in all but name, this is really Clone Wars Season 8. I know for us really. But also with the element that anybody can just start watching it from the Bad Batch and they can go back and fill themselves in on some of the stuff they missed. But as I said, in all but name, it is really Season 8, and you can just tell with Filoni on board, he's just thrown in everything that is references and everything you've seen before in the Clone Wars. It's just continuing it along. There's going to be more of it, for sure. That's time to
So they're tricking me.
It's a Jedi mind trick.
So rather than the fear of like, I have to go back and watch 7 seasons, now it's like, this is a new series. And they're like, we got you.
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be so many Easter eggs and stuff that other people will talk about. You go, damn it, I'm going to have to watch this all now. But I mean, watching this Bad Batch stuff, and I just get lost in it. As soon as it's on, and you're watching it, you're in that world right away, and you just get lost in it right away. It's just so gorgeous and it's just so lovely. It's just when you're watching some of the other Clone Wars stuff, I mean, as great as Clone Wars stuff, you don't get lost in it thinking that they're there, because everything just looks, in the first 2 or 3 seasons, looks so cartoony that you can actually ever believe that you were there. But in these ones, you can. You can really think you're there. That's just absolutely gorgeous.
They treated this as a standalone series. They didn't. They were conscious of it, and we all know it. Wink, wink, as the Clone Wars Episode 8, but they didn't come into it like that. They're treating it as a standalone series properly, so that you don't have to have that 7 seasons worth ahead of you. You can watch.
I don't feel lost.
Appreciate that.
I don't feel lost.
Appreciate that.
So they're doing that good.
Yeah.
The one difference I feel, which I don't know, people might view as either bad or good, is that this is much more of a singular storyline than Clone Wars. Clone Wars really was able to follow threads of a lot of different characters all over the galaxy at the same time, and there was an Ahsoka arc and an Anakin arc and an Obi-Wan arc, and then back to Anakin, and blah blah blah. Whereas this is really just following these 5 people throughout a singular storyline. Some people might not like that aspect of it, as opposed to the Clone Wars, but I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, I feel like there's still a lot tied in, even though they're the main ones. There's a lot tied in. Like, I'm interested. Because the Kaminoans seem pretty mad, so I'm interested to see what happens to them. Tarkin's view was anti-clone view, but now he's like, okay, I'll try this clone with Crosshair. And now what's going on with Wrecker? But there's a lot of stuff going on around that I'm like, more of the universe. Like I said, the Kaminoans and Tarkin is, and even anybody else that kind of appears up. Those are the big ones where I'm like, I want to see. Because obviously cloning is the big thing with the sequels and Palpatine returning. So it's like that. I'm really happy they included the chain code, because that was one of the things that popped up in The Mandalorian. I'm like, you can just track anyone with a chain code now. And now it's almost a backstory to The Mandalorian. It's like, okay, this is when they did that. This is why they're doing it. I'm like, okay, even though it's, dicey at times, sometimes you just got to accept the kayfabe and be like, okay, this is the reason. Anything else might be too difficult to explain. Fine by me. So it's interesting to see this is why.
When you don't use good cloners, you get Snoke. So
Exegol's just really just eating it then.
I can just picture Palpatine being like, so who's your cloner?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Here, write this down. Kaminoans, I destroyed them. My bad. So,
I did like the callback to Wrecker's fear of heights from
that was nice. That was effective.
I'm totally with that, yeah.
I'm curious, though, like, my guess, though, is that the way that they've established this show, they will not return to a story arc of the Kaminoans unless the Bad Batch connects with them. They won't have a separate spin-off set of episodes or arc about the Kaminoans or other characters. Like, it seems like the way that they're establishing the story, like, the only way that we're going to see anything on screen is if the Bad Batch are directly interacting with them.
Maybe, unless Tanwi wants Omega back for some reason, or if she had some kind
Right.
of end game, or
But that's how
once
we would
once
get
there's more
back to it.
reveals with Omega. Yeah.
Right.
There's definitely more to come from the Cameronians, or whatever you say it. There's a lot more to come from them, for sure. And there's still a lot from the prequel stuff we don't know.
And then, why is Fennec chasing them? Like, who is she working for? Why does she want the kid?
Well, I was almost convinced that she was hired by the Cameronians. So I don't know maybe it's just what I've got in my head. Probably. Said that.
I'm wondering that too. But she would know who the Bad Batch were if she was sent there by the Kaminoans.
True.
She would have went as a friend to them,
Well, one backstory that we never really have gotten thoroughly is the now I'm blanking on the name.
Him.
Oh gosh, the one guy that Sifo Dyas. He shows up in the Clone Wars very briefly, and that one scene where he sort of has his little exposition about what happened, it was so brief, and I kept rewinding the show the same 30 seconds just to try and gather it all and make sure the subtitles were on, and it still went by so fast that I feel like that stuff has just not been thoroughly explained, or maybe from the Kaminoan point of view. I always hope for more of that, I guess.
Yeah, it's hard to think that they got played, and assuming that they didn't know who Obi-Wan was when he showed up. They seem a little, more onto things than that. Okay, we'll just take it at face value that you're the guy that's supposed to be here,
You're now the new point man or something.
But then you're who was paying for them before? Who funded it initially?
I mean, I assume that Palpatine was paying for it through Dooku, and Dooku through Sifo Dyas.
Dooku was rich, so... Yeah.
Right. There's so much of Palpatine playing both sides of the war, which is, one of the most interesting aspects of that era, that how much was he paying for both sides of the war? I mean, it's fascinating. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, I know people go on about the politics and that kind of stuff in the prequels, but yeah, I think I've found it a lot more interesting. Maybe it's because we're aging with it, but it's become a lot more interesting as time goes on. All that political and skullduggery and stuff going on in the background.
Yeah,
it's funny that the interesting part is seeing the Senate now, when it was mentioned in one sentence in A New Hope.
Right.
This whole big
so who are we betting on? Who is the hologram?
What did the subtitles say?
Yeah, they were not very helpful.
Well, they didn't speak. We never heard the voice.
They didn't say anything.
The hologram. Yeah,
just being like a hum or something like
right.
that. Right.
Maybe they were just humming a tune.
It's somebody who wears clothes. That's all we can be sure. My first.
They're not naked. That's all we know.
No, my first thought was Bale. But I have to say, I would be a little bit disappointed if it was, only because what I said before is I just didn't think that they got their act together that quickly after the whole Order 66. I was thinking that's years away, and we've had Rebels to establish the whole rebellion side of things. I would be disappointed.
He would have had to start somewhere,
My thought first certainly was Ahsoka, just because of the connection with Rafa and Trace.
Yeah.
And that they somehow managed to stay in touch. But yeah, who knows? We'll have to see. I mean, that's obviously... We're not even a third of the way through the season.
Yeah, it's only been 6 episodes?
6. Well, so we're past the third way, but not much. It's 6 out of 16. So yeah, we're 37% or whatever that amounts to.
Assumingly they're doing the whole 16 one after the other, and not having a mid-season break, right?
Definitely a strong choice because of the connection to it. But the way they said that made you think maybe Hunter gave the wrong, that they're playing the both sides. The way they say that last line kind of doesn't let you think it's Ahsoka. It wouldn't have been said as shady it was said, and that's kind of what leads me against Rex a little bit too. But I can't imagine the Martez sisters in league with somebody nefarious. So it might just be the way we hear that last line to some extent.
It's somebody
it's
that
got
wants
to be somebody
to know...
that's against the Empire. So
or
I think Bale's a
clones.
decent guest. Yeah, or even the bounty hunters that would need it for money, or Bale, who's obviously hasn't been a fan of Palpatine's takeover. I mean, he was there with the, this is how democracy dies, thunderous applause. So he's known. He's like, okay, I'm gonna have to start preparing for this. So
I don't know. There's so many directions they could go in. Is it gonna be, because construction of the rebellion? Is it going to be, a tangent like Saw? Is it going to be a Jedi?
It's not going to pan out, whatever it is, because it never shows up again.
Well,
So
but
it's
I
gonna
mean,
be
it could be a
answered
connection
in this show.
between. It could be a connection between Bail or Ahsoka or some other character and the Bad Batch, tying in more characters to each other. That could be the sole purpose of that interaction. That
Oh, what if
wind
it's
up-
Crosshair?
I'm just rewatching that little bit here as you're talking, and they say patch him through, so it's
Yeah.
not a she.
No, it's a him.
So it can't be.
Unless it's
It can't
Fulcrum
be.
and it's Ahsoka's voice disguised like Fulcrum was in season 1 of Rebels.
Yeah, but they wouldn't be she wouldn't be fulcrumming with them because they're her friends.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
That's an
Oh, what if it is
now.
Crosshair? I just
Fulcrum.
thought like that. He could be.
Oh
hunting
yeah,
them
actually
down.
that's true. He might.
You think they didn't show him this episode, but they did.
So there's a screenshot. So if you zoom that up, so it's got
let me see.
it is a cloak with something around. So it's wrapping around a few layers.
Boba
and it's-
Fett.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, is that a collar and a sash on a shoulder?
It's Junior Caesar.
It is Julius.
It's hard. I mean, it seems very unlikely that's Maul.
It's
from that,
Geode in
doesn't
a
it?
robe.
Geode in a robe.
I will accept that.
Yes. Stuck there with stony face. Yeah. I'm thinking. It just seems all odds on for Bale, doesn't it? I don't really want it to be Bale, I have to say. But
I'm definitely getting Tatooine
just
vibes
think-
from the matting and on all the the stuff, the texture of that cloth. So it looks like
do
somebody
you see
from
some
the
sand
desert.
there? Do you?
Yeah, I see sand. It's coarse and it's everywhere. Yeah.
Just everything. Just actually moving up and just rewatching a bit like a little bit and just actually turn slightly in that hologram. It's it's the classic turn around to face them sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, it makes me wonder how soon within season 1 that character will be revealed. Will it be the next episode? Will it be the end of the season? Will it be somewhere in the middle? Hard to say.
It's funny because I rewatched Rebels and when at the time I felt like it took them forever to reveal Ahsoka. It was like 2 episodes. So,
Well, it was the end of season 1, wasn't it? It was the final episode of season 1.
yeah, but they
where
mentioned
she comes
Fulcrum
down the ladder.
they mentioned her maybe twice, previous episodes.
Yeah, that's true.
And then they show the reveal thing. Yeah, but I felt like that dragged on for 2 seasons, and then I watched them oh, that was the beginning of the season of the first time. So who knows? It might be 3 episodes from now or the finale. So
I mean, I was thinking that when do we think Wrecker's gonna go ape on them? Is that
he
I
bumps
was
his head
thinking
one
that's
more
the
time.
Well, you say that's. I was just thinking that's got to be the connection to them seeking out Rex. I would have thought.
But is that going to be the end of the series? Are they going to lose these guys one by one?
It's not going to be that long. It's not going to be that long. before it goes.
Is Hunter going to be the last one standing? And they're all going to end up getting turned. That could prove interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean that brings up a broader issue, which is how are they going to end this series? And will they die? Will they, wind up connecting with Rex or any of the other clones? Where are they in the story after this show in the larger
Assuming
story?
we're going to have more than one season of this. I mean,
Yeah, I assume 3 or 4 seasons.
I mean, you assume Rebels, when they meet Rex, he would have been oh, let me call up Hunter and Wrecker. If we
Right,
no.
that's a problem, right? Yeah, I mean, it's a part of the problem with developing a larger story arc for these time periods with new characters when we don't know where those characters would be later on. I mean, that's why the end of Rogue One is brilliant because, Disney created a film where all the leads die.
So you can make backstories
Yeah.
like Andor.
prequels and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'd say we still don't know exactly where the season is going.
Yeah,
I just think it can't be
that's
too long before Wrecker goes a bit ape on them.
And that's part of the fun too. I'm so glad they're releasing these as the actual series and not all at once.
All at once?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they stuck with that, but
Agreed.
we'll see. We'll see how it ends up. It's been great so far though, so I haven't been. It's been must see every.
And also,
every
we
week.
don't know what's next, do we? Unlike a lot of these things, there's no preview for the next week now. We're still none the wiser what's coming next week
Yeah.
until the day, and that's,
they're not doing the same
great.
thing like they did with the with Rebels, where they would release.
Yeah.
This happens next week.
Oh, yeah, those were good. Those were really cool. Right.
the sneak peek things. They're not doing that with this one, so it's like
That was on
totally-
the Star Wars show, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's now defunct completely?
They're doing like periodic episodes, I think once a month or something like that.
Okay,
And the
but
weekly show
nothing
is the
like
one
with
that's on.
Andy Gutierrez and just sort of like hanging out, walking through Lucasfilm and everything.
I don't know. I know that I don't know.
Yeah.
I know they were
There's
taking a
no,
hiatus.
there's no after show for this at all, is there? That's
Yeah, no,
kind of
there's-
unusual
Yeah.
for these cartoon, Star Wars cartoon stuff. No after show at all.
Yeah, that weekly
Just,
Star Wars
just so that
show
we
is
can
like
see
the-
Pablo with his cup of coffee, not answering the question again, and that kind of stuff.
But to be honest, I never watched any of those Rebel Recon shows or any of that stuff because.
No, they weren't very good.
Well, I mean, I
Apart
just
from
didn't want to know.
Pablo Christian. Yeah.
Like, I like just going in cold. I did, same
Just
thing
ended
with
up
you.
having Chopper going around causing chaos in the place. Then Pablo being arrogant and not answering the question that he was given by a fan, and just some random stuff. And then the clip. Yeah, it wasn't a lot in it.
I do miss the talking Yoda statue.
I don't miss that at all. I have to say.
I was watching the Rebels Recon shows because I couldn't watch the shows. I didn't get whatever channel it was on, and it was my only means of knowing
those
at all
Disney
what was
XD,
going
yeah.
on in the story. For the first 2 seasons, I didn't get to see the
Oh,
show, so I was
no.
only getting those snippets, and that was sort of my
Man,
fix.
that must have been infuriating.
It was frustrating, yeah, but it was like the only thing that I was able to do. And then I wound up getting them all on Blu-ray one at a time and enjoying them that way.
Excellent. Well, so has anybody got anything dying last thoughts to say? Say it now or forever hold their peace.
Well, I did just want to mention to the 4 of you that on the Senate chat, I placed the images of the front and back of Rebel Mission to Ord Mantell, as well as a link to the MP3 that's on the Force.net archives. So you can listen to that full half hour. There are a few artifacts, a few like audio glitches in that MP3, but it's still very listenable, and you can get a sense of what the story was that Han Solo was referring to in The Empire Strikes Back. And
Yeah, I'll put that link in there when I post this episode on YouTube, so that way people listen.
Sure.
Go and
That'd be
check that out.
great.
Yeah, our Swedish fans are going to love
Yes.
that.
Shout out to
Hello to everybody in Sweden. Okay, thanks to you, everybody. See you on the other side. Have a good day for you guys. That's almost
Cheers.
gone.
May the force be with you.
See you.
Okay.
Bye.
Go switch off. I am the Senate.
The Force will be with you.